Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Still We Persist. My name is Tamara Lash. I use she and her pronouns, and I'm the I, a woman of color, graduate assistant.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sienna Kaske. I use she and her pronouns, and I am the I, Woman of Color Initiative Leadership Liaison. And today we have such a special guest. We have Isis Lowery here today, which we're so excited, and it's so fun. Since it is COVID-19, like our Wi-Fi might go out, you might hear a dog bark, a partner might walk in. So, who knows what's going to happen, but we hope that you enjoy this episode and just roll with it. So Isis is from Melbourne, Australia, and she is currently a student at Oregon State University, but she will be graduating in June with a degree in public health, and she's majoring in human development and family sciences. She's also a senior on the Oregon State women's gymnastics team and has been the second team All-American on-floor exercise. And she's passionate about self-love, self-confidence, empowerment, as well as mental health. And so thank you so much, Isis, for being on the show. It feels so good to be in conversation with you.
Thank you for having me, guys. Like I said, I love doing these kinds of things, and I don't know, it's really important, like during this time that, people are staying connected, obviously doing like what they need for them, but I think staying connected is really important, and it's really cool to be able to, even if it's just like this in a chill, calm way, it's just good to talk and interact with people. Especially for me, because I'm an extrovert, so it's like I miss
Yeah, I feel you big time. Yeah, so before we get going, I'm gonna hand it off to Tamara.
Yeah, so like always, we want to start our episodes off with the land acknowledgement. I want to give another shout out to the Native Land app. So if you're at home, wherever you are, I definitely would say download that and just kind of figure out whose land you're actually on. It's a really powerful app, and I think it really brings like Native and Indigenous issues and topics to the forefront that can fall to the back of our mind as we move away from Oregon State and from Corvallis. And so as we do with every episode, I'll be recognizing the land both in Portland, where Sienna and I are, and then in Corvallis. So here we are. Every community owes its existence and vitality to generations from around the world who contributed their hopes, dreams, and energy to making the history that led to this moment. Some were brought here against their will. Some were drawn to leave their distant homes in hope of a better life, and some have lived on this land for more generations than can be counted. Truth and acknowledgement are critical to building mutual respect and connection across all barriers of heritage and difference. We begin this effort to acknowledge what has been buried by honoring the truth. What we now call Portland, Oregon, and Multnomah County were the traditional homelands of the Multnomah, Kathlamet, Clackamas, Cowlitz bands of Chinook, Tualatin Kalapuya, Molalla, and many other tribes who made their homes along the Columbia River. And what is now called Corvallis, Oregon, is located within the traditional homelands of the Marys River or Ampunefu Band of Kalapuya. Today, people from these bands have become a part of the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde, the Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians, as well as the Chinook Nation, Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde Community of Oregon, and the Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians and Cowlitz Nation in Washington State. We pay respect to their elders, past and present. Please take a moment to consider the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that bring us together here today.
Thanks, Tamara. So, Isis, you are just such a bubbly, bright person, and I'm so happy that we can connect with you through Still We Persist. And I think that your perspective is so genuine and so needed right now, and just your bubbliness is it's making me smile. So I'm really happy to be sharing this space with you right now.
Thank you. I know, I just try to it's definitely I'm not always, especially at a time like this, like I said before, it's hard. There are days where I'm just this sucks. This isn't, no one wants to be in this kind of situation. But I think as of late, I've just been really trying to, I've been writing more in my gratitude journal and just writing down what I'm grateful for. Because that really, if you, at the end of the day, if you can still list things that you're grateful for, it's pretty good. So, just stuff like that. But I mean, I like being happy and I like being bubbly. So it's when I'm not feeling like that, it's ugh. So I just try to be like that as much as I can.
Totally. So I guess kind of to start us off, like, what has it been like to be a woman of color in Australia and then come to the US and be a woman of color here, and especially being like an athlete? I'm sure like that adds to it too. So like kind of tell us a little bit about your journey here.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I'm biracial, identify as biracial. My dad's African American. He's from Michigan. He was born and raised here, moved to Australia to play basketball. That's where he met my mum. My mum's white, and she grew up in like a small country town. So that was a culture shock for my dad in general. He didn't even know Australia was a country. He said he thought he was going to Austria until he got like to the airport. I was like, Australia? So anyways, that's kind of how my parents met. So, like there's not a whole lot of ethnic diversity, I would say, especially as far as like African American people go, like back home. We have like a larger population of Sudanese, and we have like a lot of people like in certain areas, like, we have like a lot of refugees and a lot of immigrants and stuff like that. So there is cultural diversity, but it's just not so much like spread like across. Like I would go to school, like for the longest time, my sister and I, we were the only kids of color at my school. And that wasn't something that I really picked up on when I was young, because I was like, it's not like I was really getting like teased or anything like that. There was literally like maybe 2 occasions where like some of my classmates like said something about like the color of my skin. But other than that, people were like, oh, like you're always tan, like, and I'm like, yeah, like, okay. So like just little things like that now looking back on, I was like, interesting. Like, and obviously like my dad grew up in a different time in a different place. So he didn't want us to have to go through some of the things he went through. And he's like, well, we grew up in a very, like, we weren't like rich or anything like that. Like we were fine, like financially, and we were able to live in good neighborhoods, and, it was safe and all of that kind of stuff. So my dad just really wanted us to be able to like have a different experience. So if anything, I would just say that the biggest challenge was like, it was more so ignorance. And I didn't really know it was ignorance until I came here. Because I didn't even know. Like I came to America and I didn't know half the things. Like I thought, because I'm mixed, I was like, well, am I black or am I white? It wasn't like I'm mixed and that's my identity. It was I'm half. Like, and I would joke and be like, oh, like a black day or a white, like I would say something and like some of my friends would be like, oh, like that was your white side or that was your black side or whatever. And I'd be like, oh, but now I'm like, that's not like, what? Like, that's so weird. And I would joke about that too. Cause I think like when I would joke about it, it would make people less uncomfortable if I said something. So then that was kind of like my defense mechanism. And that is a lot of the time, like just like, like joke around. And then it wasn't until I really came here. And I had never been surrounded, and obviously Corvallis is not a culturally diverse town. Like it's very white, and I'm very comfortable in very white spaces because half my family is white. All my family in Australia is white. I grew up, all my friends are white. Like I wasn't, if anything, it was the opposite. Like I had never been around black people. So I was like, and I'm half black. So it was so weird for me to be like, well, if I'm uncomfortable, then that's biased because I am black. So how can I'm like, and then it was so weird for me because I was like, do I have like prejudice or do I have like, I was like, I was just so confused. But I just had never felt more like, what's the word I'm even trying to explain? Like, I just felt like I blended in. I just felt like I fit in. Like if I would wear my hair down at home, everyone would be like, oh my God, and make the biggest deal about it. And it would be embarrassing. So I never wore it out. I would always have my hair up. Obviously like with gymnastics, it was always up anyways, but when we would go to school, it was always in like a bun or a ponytail, or it was up, like it was never out. Because I just didn't want people to touch it. I didn't want people to be like, oh my gosh, like so curly. And it's like, so it's ugly, like thanks. And I just didn't like love it. I hated it. I wanted pin straight blonde hair down to my butt forever because my mom had straight hair. And I'm like, well, why don't I have hair like that? And she's like, she can't say because you're black. But she's like, Isis, like they make you special. Like when you're older, you're going to love them. And I'm like, and now I do. And I'm so grateful that she never let me or my sister permanently straighten our hair. Cause like I would have been so upset. Like if I actually had have done that. So anyways, but yeah, I came to school here and I was like, this is like the most diversity I've ever been around. Like I've never been around this many black people. I've never been around this many people that looked like me. Like I didn't know I was light skinned until I came to school. They're like, oh, like you're light skinned. I was like, what? And they're like, light. I'm like, I'm black. They're like, you're light skinned. I was like, what is a light skin? Like, and I had no idea. And they're like, there's dark skin and light skin and there's what? And it's like, oh, so I didn't even know like half the stuff that I like, you know, about my own culture. And I think a lot of that is like, my dad never pushed anything onto us. Like, he didn't want us to grow up with prejudice. He didn't want us to grow up stereotyping certain people. And I really respect that, because he wanted us to grow up and like, he didn't want us to grow up and be scared of a certain whatever, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, he didn't want us to grow up and hate white people and hate the police and hate like that kind of thing, because he's like, it's a different time, it's a different place, you don't have to worry about the stuff I worried about. So I would say that like the biggest change for me was just, you know, learning how to accept me for me and not having to feel like I had to pick a side per se. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just, it was coming into terms with the fact that like I mixed race, and that in itself is an identity, and that's okay. Because like people will question, they'll be like, well, you're not even Black. Or like if you say something and you don't sound a certain way, or you don't speak, or you don't act a certain way, it's like, you're not like one of us. And it's like, well, I look like you, but just because, you know what I'm trying to say? And like, I know it's different in, you know, certain communities and stuff, but for me, it was just so cool. And I just loved being around so many people that looked like me, because that was something I never had growing up. And I didn't realize I needed or wanted that until I was in that environment. So, and a lot of people were like, oh my gosh, like there's like no Black people here. And I was like, are you crazy? Like, look at this, like, look at this. I was like, this is amazing. But then obviously you go out downtown and then, okay, I get it. But like on campus, and even like campus isn't that diverse apparently. And I'm like, guys, yes, it is. But like, cause I just am not used to like the slightest bit of diversity. So that's just been a really cool experience. So yeah, it's kind of the long-winded.
That was awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, you've said so many things that I feel like, whoa, did we live a semi-same life? Like, I don't know, like when you brought up, like I'm someone who would also joke along with the people who are making jokes like at me or about me, and like, oh, your white side, or like you talk really white is something that has always come up for me, and people telling me that, and I'm like, okay, so what does that mean? But for the longest time I would go along with it, like, haha, yeah, totally. And I actually like chemically straightened my hair. So the fact that you brought up that your mom never let you do that, like I did that, and it wasn't until I was walking around like the Oregon farmers market up in Portland, and I saw a little girl who had like the cutest of curls. Like her curls were so beautiful and they were bouncy, and I legit started crying. I'm a very emotional person, like if you don't know. I started crying in the middle of the Oregon farmers market, and that's when I like did the big chop. Like within a couple of days I did the big chop, and I like let my curls like actually start to grow, because I was like, no, I have been confining myself into boxes that I don't think I want to conform myself within anymore. So just hearing your story, really, I was like, oh my gosh, I resonate a lot with what you're saying. And something that I don't think we necessarily planned on touching on is the topic of multiraciality, but you brought it up. And so something that I'm wondering and thinking about is like, what was your process towards coming more comfortable or like understanding a little bit more like yourself as a multiracial individual, and how does that come into play when you like enter in family dynamics or like potentially within gymnastics or whatever it may be? What does that look like for you?
That's a great question. And I think for me it was seeing how comfortable everyone else was around me, and a lot of that too comes from that like American confidence I kind of like touched on before we started this. But I was just, because I've always been extroverted and I've always been a people person, but I just wasn't comfortable really fully being who I am, and fully, because I was so consumed with like, oh my gosh, what if people think I'm this? What if people think like, oh, like I was just, and I still am like that. Like, I don't really care as much what people think in terms of like, oh, what are you wearing? Or like, why are you doing that? But more like, I want people to think I'm a good person, and I want people to, you know, it's that type of thing. Because I'm like, to think that someone out there might not like me or think I'm mean, like makes me so sad. And that's what when I like say care about people, like, you know, so I think it was just coming here and seeing how so many people were just like, everyone was so different and everyone just owned it. And I was like, I need to own it. I'm like, and it was like a fresh start. I was like, so if I start acting a certain way or try something a bit different or do something different with my hair, it wasn't going to be like, what are you doing? It was like, they don't know me. So it was kind of like, I felt like I could just be free. And then that allowed me to kind of explore. So then I started, you know, diving into more you know, more of our little like meetings or more of our groups and stuff like that, because I was like, yeah, what's this about? So it wasn't until I really started one of our programs called Real Talk, which is a student athlete development program that's now like more campus wide, that we invite like more people and stuff. And I remember one of the people in the athletic department was like, Isis, you need to come to this. And I was like, okay, like fine, like. And I was like, why? Like, because I'm that person that like tends to go to a lot of stuff, but then sometimes if I don't want to, I'm like, it's not the end of the world. But she was like, no, like you need to come to this. And I was like, Real Talk, like what's it about? And she probably didn't want to be like, it's for like people of color to come and talk about things. Because she was like, I don't want to like single you out and be like, you're black, go. Like, you know. So, and I understand now, I think why she was like, just go, like you'll love it. And I was like, okay. So I walk in and I'm like, all right. Like it was a little group, maybe like 10, 15 people. And then we started talking about like our athletic identity, and like we like doing these exercises, and they're like, when you think of the word athlete or student athlete, what do you think about? And then it's like interesting. So we'd like kind of like break off in groups and talk about stuff. And then we were talking about you know, like why when we think like athlete or student athlete, a lot of people think like an African American or a black athlete or a black, like why all people on the football team, why do you, oh, I play football, you think they're black. Like, so then we were kind of talking about that. And then we kind of started delving into like the whole, like, you know, we started talking about race, and I was like, well, I identify as like mixed race. And that's kind of the first time I really shared my story. And we were talking about microaggressions, and I took a class with Cornwall. I don't know if you guys ever took it. And that class like changed my life. He was the first black professor or teacher I've ever had. And he was like, stand up. He's like, if you identified as a person of color, stand up. And I was like, and I like stood up, and it was like kind of awkward. Oh, can you guys hear me? Okay, so internet issues. Sorry about that. But yeah, so I was kind of just talking about, I took this one class with a professor, and he was like the first black professor I've ever had. And so obviously growing up in a predominantly white country, predominantly white city, school, I've never had that before. So this teacher, he said, if you identify as a person of color, please stand up. And I was like, okay, like I'm like uncomfortable. I was like, this is awkward. And like a few of us stood up. There was a few athletes in the class, not really, not all of them were black, but you know, a few people stood up. And at first I thought a person of color, this is how like I was also ignorant, I didn't know. I only thought a person of color was someone that was literally like black or brown. Like I didn't think like, so because there's one Asian boy stood up, and I was like, what are you doing? Like, you know, color, like, and I had no idea. And it's so embarrassing. I would say like, as a person of color, to not know what it meant, or like to not know what a person of, you know what I'm trying to say? I was like, that's just, and I wouldn't like when people assumed what I was. So like the fact that I was assuming, I was just like, so then I kind of went into this whole like, all right, I need to like figure out what's going on, and I need to learn so I can, you know, be more aware of these things, because it's not just like there's black and then that's it, that's the color. You know what I mean? So anyways, we all stood up, and he's like, this teacher, he's like, this is your class. And I was like, and we like looked at each other like, what does that even mean? Like what? And he was like, how many of you guys have had a black professor before? And not one of, like one person I think put their hand up. And he's like, this is like a space for you to feel comfortable, and we're going to talk about some things that will be uncomfortable for a lot of people, but this is like for you guys, because you guys have never had like a person like me teach you and be able to like, you know, help you and be able to inspire. And I was like, and I almost like started crying, because I just didn't realize the enormity of like your identity, and I didn't know like how important it was to know who you were and be proud in that. So anyways, we would do these panels like every week, and like every single person got a chance to like speak about something. It was like your name, what do you identify as? And we had different panels. So it was like a people of color panel, and then you could have the LGBTQ panel, and then it was like a disabilities panel. Like, and if you identified with whatever it was, regardless of what you looked like or what people thought you, like you could go up there. So it was like, it was really cool. And on the first day he said, he's like, okay. And we spent the whole first day learning our names. Like he literally went around the room, what's your name? And then like talked to them for like 5-10 minutes. And I was like, because it was a 3-hour class. And I'm like, how's, so he did it for everyone. And I was like, so anyways, it got to me eventually. And I'm like, Isis? And he's like, Isis. He's like, first of all, I want to apologize, because I'm sure that you get, because obviously my name is Isis, and a lot of people are like, oh, like terrorists. And I'm like, like airports suck. They're a lot better now, but it used to be really, really bad. They wouldn't say my name, or they'd be like, is that your real name? And I'm like, why would I lie on my passport? Like, I've had people ask me if I've been named after a terrorist, and I'm like, are you like stupid? Like, how could you, like, I'm obviously more than 4 years old. Like, how is that? Of course not. So anyways, and he said, and I remember because there was another boy in the class, and I won't obviously say his name, but he said his name, and the teacher was like, is that your birth name? And he's like, no. He's like, my friends call me that. He's like, why? He's like, because they said it's too hard to pronounce. And I was like, and I felt so bad. And I was like, oh my gosh. And he's like, okay, well, in this class, if you prefer to, he's like, I would like to call you by your birth name. And he's like, what is it? So he said it, and he kind of repeated it a few times so he could like make sure he got the pronunciation right. He's like, if you cannot bother to learn someone's name, you are doing them a dishonor, and you are disrespecting them. If you can't even bother to learn how to say their name right, how do you ever think that person will respect you? And I was like, oh, so this teacher, that was honestly like a combination of that class and that teacher and what I learned from there and sharing my story. That's the most I've ever shared my story before. And the more I shared, the more I was dissecting it. And we were talking about microaggressions, and like some of the girls at my school would be like, oh my gosh, I'm going to do what your mom did. I'm like, what? She's like, I want to marry a black man too, so I can have brown babies like you. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, yeah. And I didn't realize how crazy that is until now. And in the moment I was like, that's kind of weird. My mom didn't marry my dad so she could have brown babies. Like, they went through a lot of crap, like an interracial couple back then when it wasn't like a popular thing to do. You know what I'm trying to say? So that, like, I was weirded out by that, but I didn't really get it. And then when I was in this class, everyone was like, ooh. And I was like, ooh. Like, so it was just really interesting. And yeah, so that and real talk were the two points where I really was like, okay, I think I like get it now. So that's kind of when my journey began. So yeah. See.
Wow, thank you so much.
No, cool.
So how is it being on the gymnastics team? Like, how does your identity impact your time there? Because I know that you spend a lot of time there, and that is your passion and your love.
Yeah.
And so I would like love for you to talk more about that.
Yeah, so kind of the same thing. Like, we have a very diverse team. When I say that, I mean, like, obviously everyone's different, but like, we're a very like ethnically, racially diverse team, and that's really cool. Because growing up, again, like, there wasn't a lot of kids that looked like me, and even at the top level, I was like, and I didn't understand why that was important until I was able to like have this platform, and I would get little girls coming up to me after meets, or like little black girls or little brown girls or just little girls, and they're like, I like your hair. And I'm like, thanks. Like, oh, I do too. Like, so then I became like this symbol, and I was like, okay, I thought I just came here to do gym and like get a degree, but I was like, it was like I found my calling somehow. And it was so weird because when I first got here, like every single week, like for the first year of college, like I would straighten my hair, because it was in that weird phase, like you were saying, like I straightened it because I liked it straight, but then like it was dead. So I was like, well, when it was curly, it was dead. So I was like, straighten it to make it not look dead. So then it was a cycle. So anyways, I got box braids for the first time because no one in like Australia like can really do box braids. It's not like really a thing. So anyways, I got them done, and I was like, hold up, like it was my aunt, and she's like, you want some braids? And I was like, and this is my dad's on my dad's side family, so she's she's black, and she's like, yeah, like I'll get the lady that does my hair. And I was like, okay. So I just felt like now I am truly a black woman, and that's really what I was like, yes, like. So anyways, and then after I took those braids out, then my hair, like, like all the dead parts, like kind of just like comes out in the shower or whatever. And it's like, oh, and I was like, my hair's coming out, like what? And I was like, hold on. I was like, my hair is like, and all the girls are like, Isis, your hair is so healthy. And like one of my teammates, she's Japanese and black, so she's mixed too, and like obviously different like curl pattern and stuff, but she knew way more about like products and hair and stuff. So she's like, Isis, your curls are like healthy. And I was like, okay. So then I started like wearing it out more, and then it was growing, and then my sophomore year I started wearing my hair in like my signature, like my ponytail, my puff or whatever. So, and that's really when I felt like I'd like come into my own, and like through the gymnastics team, like our coaching staff, they're awesome, and my coach is really, she's all about like kind of the same thing, like just empowerment. She's like, you guys don't understand, like the platform you have as gymnasts and as women is so powerful. And she didn't just want us to come there to gym and leave. Like she wanted us to make an impact, and she wanted us to like grow into the fierce, strong, independent women that like we need to be. So I just like, she's just such a baddie. I love my coach. Shout out. So it was kind of like a combination of that, and also like just seeing the impact and effect I had on little girls, even girls that didn't look like me, but were just coming up to me and being like, oh my gosh, like I love your routine. Oh my gosh, I love your blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like,
that's so sweet.
Yeah, it's like, and after some meets, I would literally like be like really like emotional. I'm like, and like one little girl once came up to me, and she like gave me like, because you know we get like a lot of like stuff, like we'll get like pictures and whatever's. But this like one little girl came up to me and like gave me a hug, and she just like looked at me, and I was just like, and I almost started crying because she just looked at me like, she was just staring at me, and I was like, wow. And I was like, I love your hair. And she's like, thanks. And she like looked at her mom, and like her mom was white. And that's the other thing, like presuming like if you see a little like, you know, colored kid, it's like, because people would think I was adopted. I'm like, that's my mom. Like, what do you mean? I'm not adopted. It's my mom. They see my dad and be like, yes, that's your dad, but how's that your mom, you know? So anyways, I see her mom. So I knew she was biracial. And I looked at her and I'm like, I love your hair. And then I was like, now it's my responsibility and my job to like make sure all of these little girls know that like they're freaking beautiful. And like, they're so like, you don't have to look like that to be pretty, and you don't have to. So then I kind of just was like, that inspired me, and that made me want to become even more like, I just wanted to be this figure for people. So I'm like, well, I can't possibly empower and inspire if I'm not doing that myself. And I just like realized, actually like the other day, I was like, what empowers me the most is knowing that I'm helping other people, but I can't help other people to the best of my ability if I'm not like feeling it inside. So that's why it's like a balance of obviously like giving, but tending to myself so I can give more and feel better about, you know what I mean? It's like a two-way street. So I just will never forget that moment, because I was like, wow, that's when I really was able to like measure the impact I was having, rather than just I did a good flow routine and people were like it was, people were coming up to me and saying like, I had parents coming up to me and being like, thank you for being the role model for my daughter. And I was like, like, you're welcome. Like,
yeah.
gosh, like, are you serious? Like, I just didn't know the impact I had. And Corvallis is such a small town. And I was like, where are you people coming from? Like, like people would come from Portland to come watch us, or drive down from wherever to watch us. And then, you know, some people were like, we came down to like watch you. And I'm like, oh, thank you, we appreciate it. And they're like, no, like, and I'm like, well, this is awkward. Like if my teammates are around and they're like, oh, my favorite. And like, this is, so it's like, then it's like, oh, like, I want to like acknowledge what they've said without being like, you hear that? Like, you know, so I don't know, but it was just really cool. And then obviously like the more I did, like as far as like gymnastics went, and like, you know, all of my successes and stuff, I just always made sure that I was like, you know, giving back in the sense that like I was just trying to empower and inspire as many people. And with that like crown thing, like when I put my crown on, it was like I would get people taking pictures next to like my picture in Gill, and they've got their crowns on, and I'm just like, that started as just a choreography, and then like it became like a symbol of empowerment and self-love, and I was like, yeah, this is it. So like there's a picture that someone tagged me in, and and they sent it to me actually, and it was her daughter who's like 4 years old. Holy, she's like this, like in the crowd, like, and her mom, and I can like send it to you guys later actually, because it's like the cutest thing. And she's like, can't wait to watch you, like love heart. And I was like, oh my, like, and I'm over here upset that I didn't get a 9-9 or whatever. And I'm like, there's little girls in the crowd that are 4 years old holding up a crown. Like that is the impact I wanted to have. And like, I'm just so glad that I was able to like do that. But I would say that that's definitely like shaped my journey through athletics and my identity, because it became more than just like, you know, I was a symbol for girls of color or women of color. It was like, I became a symbol for like everyone, especially with like girls of color, to be like, I can do that too. And now you look at Simone Biles, and you look at Gabby Douglas, and you look at all of those women that have just like paved the way. And it's like, whoa. And there was women before them too that just didn't have the same recognition because social media wasn't what it was today. Like there were more like Black female gymnasts that were very, very, very successful and made history before Simone Biles and Gabby Douglas. But those two names stand out because like one, obviously they were like super, super good and they were like the first to do so many things, but social media, it's like now everything's out there. Like before they didn't have that recognition. So those women before them just didn't have that same like, hallelujah. So yeah, I don't know. It's just great to be able to use my platform. And gymnastics is something that's like, it's not a super high profile sport. It's not like football, basketball, like not everyone knows every gymnast, but everyone knows Simone Biles pretty much. And like, you know, so it's cool to say that I'm also a woman of color doing gymnastics and I'm able to impact, maybe not to the same extent, but on a local like scale, because people might see me and be like, she's more normal or real than Simone Biles is. And like, that's, you can relate to those people more when you don't think that they're like, you know what I'm trying to say? So yeah.
Wow.
I almost cried like 5 times in that because I was just reminiscing on like all of those moments.
Your story is like super inspiring, and again, like the hair piece, I'm like, oh my God, literally I feel like we live the same life. Because I remember when all of my hair was coming out, like dead ass, I didn't know that you were supposed to brush your hair like once you took your box braids out. So I got in the shower and massive like just not nest formed in the middle of my head, and I took my braids out at night. So it was like probably around midnight when I figured out that I had like this big nest in my head, and I was at my partner's house and I didn't have a brush, and so we had to do a late night Winko trip, but like it was an experience. But something that's coming up for me is thinking through, like when I think about gymnastics, besides like the Gabby Douglas and the Simone Biles, before them I see like white woman. And so I'm wondering, like, did you have any woman of color that you looked up to in like the gymnasts field before, like as you were younger and practicing gymnastics?
So yes and no. To this day, I actually don't know what her like racial or ethnic background is. Like she wasn't like super dark skinned. She wasn't like super light skinned. I would say like maybe like olivey, you know what I mean? Her name was Manette Russo. And I remember I liked her because she had curly hair, like point blank. I was like, oh my gosh, like I have curly hair, completely different curls. And it was like a slicked back little like ding ding. And it was like bigger, like, and if I showed you a picture, you'd be like, okay, not at all like any of this like stuff. But that was the closest thing I had to that kind of looks like me. And at that time, my hair wasn't super, super tight ringlety. It was more like, you know. So anyways, I looked up to her, and obviously she was a great gymnast. She was very successful. She made world championship. She has medals. She's like represented Australia multiple times. She's amazing. And I was like, I like her because she has curly hair. Like that's literally what it was. And I didn't realize why I liked her so much, like, and why that made such an impact on me. But because I guess like you would see, and I'm not, when people think gymnastics now, they think like muscly Simone Biles, that like powerhouse, they're this big and they bounce. But it used to be like they're long legged, skinny, flat, no booty, no chest, like, you know what I mean? Just very like ding. And I was like, well, that ain't me. Like I have bigger legs. And when I was younger, like obviously I was like little, but I was just like ripped. Like I had like my abs and I had my arms, and like all the boys would be like, oh, you look like a boy. You have like boy arms. And I was like, I just wanted dainty little girl arms. I wanted to not wear a dress and be like, you know what I mean? Like what 9-year-old needs to look like the Hulk? And like, I didn't realize that this 9-year-old would soon end up to be a successful gymnast because of how fit she was. So I just wish back then that I would just like accepted it more. And now when I see those little girls, I'm like, you are so, look at those muscles. Oh my gosh, you look so good. Like not like you look like a man. Like, cause I literally, people would tell me I look like a man at like 12. And I'm like, oh. So seeing all of those people and like, I'm like, I don't look like that. Like I can't be good at gym if I don't look like that, because all the best gymnasts look like that. So, you know, then comes along Shawn Johnson, and sure, she's a white woman, but she was this big and she wasn't flexible like the, you know, the Russians or the Chinese. And she wasn't like one of those rhythmic looking girls, but she came second at the Olympics and she was amazing and she could do the hardest skills. And I was like, her, because I got big legs, I got a bigger butt. Like that was just how I was when I was little, and I used to hate it and I wasn't as flexible. And then she comes along and I'm like, I like it. And in gymnastics, it's like, it's, you know, it's judged based off of what you think. Like, it's not at all like, yeah, you stuck it, that's a 10. It's like, I don't know, whatever. And so it's very subjective. And I think that was something that I had to learn and be like, okay, well, if I do this really, really good and I don't get a good score, it's not because I didn't look a certain way. And that's, I would think like, well, I'm never going to get a good score if I make a handstand, if my butt's sticking out because I've got a bigger butt, then of course I'm not going to get the score. So it's like, it's hard when so much of the sport is focused on those details, and it's not like you don't get points for doing well. You lose them when you do bad. So it's like, it's so like, you know, so I think just having those people to look up to and be like, yeah, like I want to be like them. I want to be like them. It was just really good.
As we kind of ask all of our guests on Still to Persist, and anyone that kind of comes in with Aya, but like, what are some lasting words that you want to share with the Aya community?
Okay, I would just say that if you're in a position where you don't really know like who you are, what you want to do, and you're looking up to people and you're looking for inspiration and motivation, I would say like look for them and like aspire to be like them, but figure out how you can do it and make it you. Like, don't look up someone and be like, oh, I want to be like you. It's like, okay, well, what do you want to be about them? And then how can I make that and like do it in my own way? Because I think that's really important, that we all need role models and we all need people to look up to. But if you fixate so much on trying to look like someone or trying to act like someone, then you're stripping away more parts of your own identity that you didn't know were there. And you need to really just tap into like what makes you beautiful and own it, like own your imperfections. And, you know, it is what it is. Like, I think for me, it was like trial and error and like delving into so many different types of things. I'm like, oh, I don't like that. I like that. I love this person. I love what they're about, but I kind of want to do it like this way. And I think that's what really helped me. And don't forget, like, everyone has a crown, like whether you're a guy, you're a girl, whoever you identify as, whatever you identify as, like that crown is a symbol of empowerment, and it's a symbol of self-love, self-appreciation. And like, whenever you put it on, it's like, I have it tattooed like on my ankle. Like, I love it. It's just, for me, it's just like, that's the symbol. And like, I would step onto that floor and it was go time. And I knew like, as soon as I started, I was like, boom. And then I was like, I need to adapt that mentality that like, I got this in whatever I do into all aspects of my life. And I think that's really like what helped me. And there's strength and vulnerability. Like, it's okay to not be okay, and it's okay to reach out. And when you share your real authentic story, I think so many more people can relate to that and they cling to that. And that's what inspires people, not like sitting there like, okay, so love yourself, guys, have a good day. Like, no, it's like, that's so not like, you feel millionaire starts talking to you about, you guys can do it, like, just try hard. Like, they don't want to, okay, like, they want to know, where did you come from and how did you get to where you are, not just look at where I am. Like, you know what I'm trying to say? So yeah. And you're writing, if you don't know what your story is right now, like, everyone has one. It's just, like, you might not have as many pages you've added to it, but you've got a story, and it's just about crafting it. And if like, maybe you like write it out. Like, for me, like, writing like helps. And like, you know, I had to write a lot of essays. Like, you know, if you're trying to apply for schools and you have to write a personal essay, like, I would start writing, and then I would kind of be like, I'd go on a tangent. Like, I have like this whole time, and I'd go on a tangent and be like, okay, if you're going on a tangent about something, you're passionate about it, so tap into it and then delve into that more. So I would say that's kind of like my last minute little thing.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Isis, for being on Still We Persist. I feel very empowered from this conversation, so I'm very thankful to share space with you. And I hope that the Still We Persist followers engage with you, and we'll list some ways to get involved with Aya and Isis in the description box below. But from now on, you know, please take care of yourselves. Remember to breathe. Remember to drink water. We are sending you lots of good vibes and good energy, and we'll see you next week.
Yay, thanks for having me.